I'm sitting here in front of some of the oldest houses in Upanovic, which are now the museum, and as you can see, it's pretty blooming foggy out there, which is a shame because I'm supposed to be flying out of here at 6 o'clock tonight, and I was last night, but it got cancelled because of exactly the same problem. I suspect I shall be here for another day at least. So I finished the expedition. So what do I do now? It's been a bloody amazing experience. Pretty hard and miserable weather, but now it's over. It didn't look that bad. I don't remember it as being that bad. It's super interesting. Seen whales, seals, walrus, reindeer, muskox. Amazing people in Greenland. But the food was kind of the main thing I was here for. And I kind of had a not realistic expectation, but a kind of a utopian expectation of me kayaking in the sun, calm seas, setting up camp, being a little bit warm, and then cooking something nice and chefy, perhaps with like halibut or reindeer or something. But in reality, when you're out here and the environment is so harsh and the weather's so bloody horrible, food just becomes totally functional. It's just a matter of getting something inside you as quickly as you can, preferably hot, and then getting in a tent and curling up, keeping the cold and the wet at bay. And several times the weather's been so extreme that I've been cooking it inside the tent from my sleeping bag. And I say cooking, just warming stuff up. It really is functional. You can't be pretty or chefy about it at all, which is a shame. But that's what the whole food culture was kind of born from out here, is necessity and survival, which is so interesting. Like dried food, dried cod, halibut, niku, like dried whale, walrus or seal, it's still a big part of the culture out here. And even though it's not necessary anymore, because you've got supermarkets and stuff, they're still kind of keeping hold of that culture, which is brilliant. And that dried stuff would have been during a glut, when you have good catches of cod or whatever, you dry it because you know damn well there's some bloody horrible times coming up when you're not going to really get out to catch anything, sometimes for weeks on end. So if you don't put that good stuff aside, you're going to die. It's just that black and white. And it's what's really interesting about here in Greenland is they're really worried about losing their traditions of kind of hunter-gathering and all that, which is understandable because modern life is encroaching. The younger generation are increasingly moving out to the bigger towns, or back to Denmark, or back to Europe, or somewhere, and the smaller settlements are getting smaller and smaller, which is a shame because the online connection stuff is really good out here once you're in the settlement. So I think that's a massive scope for keeping hold of, probably the only way of keeping hold of kind of that workforce or hold of communities. And that connection with the land and the sea and the food is still really strong. And even though they're worried about it, that's something that we've lost in England generations ago. We lost it past living memory, really, so that we're not really aware that we've lost it, that we used to have these skills of preserving stuff in a glut, so that we can use it during the leaner times. So it'd be really such a shame for it to decline here, because there's such passion for it, not only amongst the older generation, but a lot of the youngsters too. So it's definitely something that needs to be supported, because indigenous communities like this in the more remote areas, that's all we as a species really have left of our food heritage of 500,000, a million years of evolution has brought us to this. And then what's really super worrying is that in the last 2 generations, we've totally flipped that on its head. The global food system has gone crazy. You know, we're growing crops around the other side of the world using fertilizers, antibiotics, which is going into the water table, it's going into our blood, so that we can use fossil fuels to fly it back around the other side of the world after it's been pumped full of chemicals and gone through crazy amounts of processing. And we can't cope with it as a biological being. You know, the rates of obesity, heart disease, autoimmune disease, allergies are crazy now. Not just in England or here, or everywhere. Every health system around the world is in absolute crisis. Again, based on a rich versus poor system. And it's totally reactionary to the diets that we have. We need to be educating, you know, the kids and the parents to help the kids, because we've got to start eating local again. In 20, 30, 40 years time, the health systems are going to be absolutely knackered. Whereas we could be preventing so much of that by eating so much better than we do at the moment. You know, our whole health system is kind of predicated on going to the doctor or hospital when you're sick, which is often too late to do anything about it. We should be totally preempting it, eating locally. And I don't mean everyone's got to eat anything, only stuff that's within a 10-mile radius. That'd be crazy. Same as I don't recommend everyone eating a Greenlandic diet, because that would mean, yeah, crazy amounts of animals going to die. But it's definitely horses for courses. You know, in Greenland, eat a Greenland diet. In Bangladesh, eat something that grows and is suitable for the environment in Bangladesh. Everywhere in the world has got their own climate and environment system that humans have developed and evolved from over up to 1 million years ago. And for us to adapt to our bonkers new system of chemicals and crap, to adapt to that would take another 500,000 years, which clearly isn't going to happen. We'll be dead before that happens. So the only way to get around it is by going back to how we used to do it and how we've done it and how we've evolved as a species over that long a period. So there's got to be a compromise between local food and global food. But the global food system's got to change. It's nuts. And there is a compromise to be had. And I know processed stuff is attractive, it's full of sugar, and it gets you addicted. But that's the whole point of it, is to get you addicted, to feed the bottom line so someone can make an extra buck. We've got to get away from the processed stuff. We've got to start building communities of food and keeping it local, and just always with an eye on how we've evolved. We've evolved with the food that's in the environment that we're living in, and that includes the bacteria, which are super important. So fermentation, you know, we are one with the environment. And if our environment is pumped full of chemicals and pollution, that's what we're going to have inside us. Anyway, that's a super long thread. I'm going to stick this on YouTube, and I might even stick it on Instagram. But it's super important that happens. It's changed my thinking of diets and food, and I hope that I'm strong enough to retain most of the diet that I'm on now, and the idea of eating local and eating good food that is grown or foraged in your environment. It's essential to everything that we're about. Otherwise, everything you see in the news about healthcare systems is just going to be multiplied by, you know, the nth degree at some point. Happy, happy.